Hi, this is David Sable coming to you again with creativity from the other side for New York festivals. Creativity from the other side is where we talk to amazing people in our industry and elsewhere, people who just exude creativity, but whose creativity is different maybe from the creativity that drives us. And we just want to learn from them. And today I am so honored and happy to have a new FOD, friend of David, Steven Moy, who is the global CEO of Barbarian. Barbarian is one of my favorite companies, the company I got to know many years ago and have followed very, very carefully. And trust me when I tell you that this is creativity from the other side. And I'm just going to quote something that Steven said, but don't comment on it yet, Steven, because we're not going to talk about this yet. Engineering is a creative force. And man, if ever creativity from the other side came off in a good place and with a good start, engineering is a creative force. It's right from there. So Steven, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me today.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I'm so excited because first of all, just your pedigree in the industry, some of my favorite companies, RGA for sure, a company that I've been involved with as a friend forever because of Bob Greenberg, but just a company that I've learned from. Sapient and Isobar, really just all incredible companies in our space. And but so the fact that you've been stealing people from some of the best companies in the world, like AKQA, one of my favorites, one of my WPP favorites, and of course RGA. So we got a lot to talk about. But first, Steven, I want to talk about your parents. I want you to talk about courage, because courage is important to you. Courage is something you talk about all the time, and how in our industry, it's incumbent upon us to be courageous. And you talk about your parents and the courage that they had leaving Hong Kong. How did that influence you?
Oh, thank you. First of all, thank you for such a kind introduction. Yes, I reference back a lot of my parents as a first generation immigrant, right? Living American dreams when I was born in Hong Kong. And now I getting older, I really appreciate, especially my parents no longer with me. So I fully understand what they have done for me and my family, my siblings, because when you want to look for better life, you have to really, I call destroy the old and create the new. And they left everything behind, even though we have families in the US, I'm talking about in the 80s, but we decided, let's go because this is better for the children's future, better education. We have a better opportunity when we move to America, because Hong Kong is quite small and the university, seat may not have that kind of seat that allow that many people apply for it. So I really, that inspired me so much about really leaving everything behind and be courageous, and also just believe in what you can do and just take it from there. So has been a key ingredient in my everyday thinking. Really inspire me every day when I talk to my clients, especially in the world we're living in, right? During the pandemic, still getting through the pandemic, or the last 20 years of we have some common friends, so a lot of so-called digital transformation. Now with the mix up like Metaverse and all the other things coming along, I always love to work with my client. I said, you have to, especially today, you have to focus on experimenting. I call experimental innovation. You have to try. It's okay. I can work with you to create new products or new services or new idea, because really what happened is now the culture is moving faster than technology innovation, especially coming through the pandemic. You gotta get leave behind. If you look at that, David, right? During the pandemic, a lot of people talk about it. Just the last 2 years, e-commerce growth already equated to the last 20 years. Talking about e-commerce already here to stay. The younger generation, social and digital first, permanent shift, right? They don't watch TV, broadcast TV anymore. You have to meet them where they are, which is typically social channel or digital touch point. the traditional model, if you still doing the traditional model about, communication through broadcasting, like one and done, and then people will come and talk to you or come to your store or come buy your product and services, no longer true. So you have to think, putting a customer first, really digital centric, and then create solution that way. So lately, the last 2 years, I got fortunate to work with a lot of Fortune 1000 company. I see more and more the progressive leader, like the CMOs, the CDO, start experimenting more. So I call experimental innovation, right? You can try because moving so fast, because you're gonna get left behind. So the speed is very crucial. So that component, and I really inspired by my parents, right? How you can be courageous, go into the new uncharted territory, kind of like Metaverse stuff, go in, but you have to put your customer in the center and create value around this.
So let me build on that a little bit. So you talk about speed is the new black.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let's focus on that a little bit. Then I want to come back to your parents. So speed is the new black. What I find interesting is, and there are people in the industry who say it's about speed and cost, and yet, interestingly enough, when I look at the content that we all want to put ourselves up against, so whether it's on Netflix or whether it's on Amazon Prime or Paramount Plus or digital, Disney Plus, whatever, it doesn't really make a difference. Never in the history of the world has content, and I'm not now talking about OGC, which is bullshit, real content has never, ever been as good as it is today. It's also never been as expensive. It also takes time. It also takes time to do. And interestingly, although there is a fair amount of CGI, as one would imagine there should be, more and more is being done on location. So where once everybody said, no, everything's going to be done CGI, we're never going to be on location again, we're not going to need big studios, everything's going to be done against green screens. So we're seeing people taking their time, doing great production. We're seeing them spend a shitload of money, and we're seeing them go on location with incredible scripts, great actors, best directors, incredible producers. So how does that impact us?
Yeah, big time.
I just find that so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new, I'm going to use the term, it's not new, but actually describing the world we're living in, the attention economy. I think we are truly in an attention economy. Because first, right, you have TikTok, we condition our mind. You can only communicate with me. If not, I'm gonna move on within seconds. I'm talking about like the best practice, less than 8 seconds. So you need to make a connection with me. So the content creation for that, right, and also how you create content is atomic. I call it atomic. That can potentially the same storytelling that fit into different interaction mode. Could be broadcast, could be Instagram, could be on your website, could be YouTube. But also you need to fit into the 8-second mode. So you see, that's why you see a lot of new thinking or still learning we do how you create content that fit all the interaction modes through the customer journey we're talking about, right? So you see more and more new thinking. I can imagine with Metaverse coming in, I call the new Omniverse. Because a lot of clients ask me why, because it's related with the content. I said the simplest way to think about Metaverse, at least my opinion, called Omniverse, you got a new Omni channel going on. You have online, offline, and Metaverse now. Because as a person, human being, I go in and out of those dimensions. Talking to you right now, digital, but actually I'm sitting at home. If I go buy a pair of jeans, I would never buy a pair of jeans online unless I try online to go to a physical store. And then in some use case scenario that I might go into the Metaverse, interacting with a brand, right, for a variety of reasons, for escape, or if the pandemic still, keep us at home, that's another way for me to express myself. So all this dynamic about our behavior shifted and our customer journey completely reconstructed, if you will, right? So can you imagine if you need to create content to support every single touch point through that journey out of in and out of online, offline Metaverse? So that's why you see a lot of new innovation, a lot of investment. How you create the best content from 8 seconds to maybe Super Bowl 30-second spot, or even to a movie, to create that escape and fantasy for you, so you can create that relationship, right? So speed is very interesting if you, in the component, because a lot of movement you see people fighting for attention. So a lot of new cultural moment coming along. Like every time you have the punctuated medium event like the Super Bowl, and then I've done Super Bowl. What's like the Oscar or New York Fashion Week, all this. How are you going to keep up with that kind of demand now when your target audience constantly looking for new content or content they can relate and they can connect? Because we still have a lot of uncertainty in the world we're living in, right? Are we opening up, not opening up? New York just say you don't have to wear a mask, but you still have to wear a mask, go to the museum, all this. You still got stuck at home. That's why you see a lot of Disney and Netflix, a lot of new content because we binge watch a lot of content. So how you can create a new relationship, and also with, I mean, I'm gonna touch on also with the new all the privacy law, no cookie right now, right? So if you have a brand like David, let's say you and I launch a brand with Bob one day, how are you going to target it? That would be good. How you target the new audiences when you don't even have cookies? So this is a very interesting time that I think everybody should think
let's
about.
Go back a second. Let's go back a second. I love what you said about the omniverse. So I think part of the problem is, right, we get caught in what I call digibabble, which people get caught in talking about digital as if that's the only thing that exists in the world and it's somehow magic. Now, I believe that digital is everything, but not everything is digital. So today, if I buy coffee in the street from a guy with a push cart, chances are he'll take my credit card and a swipe on a Square.
Right.
So there's a digital component to that, but I get my coffee. I go to an event, a live event, whether it's a concert, a Broadway show, whatever. I go because it's alive, because I want to be there. I want to see it, but there's always a digital component. And people, even young people today, interestingly enough, the New York Times, the Sunday New York Times newspaper, which has nothing to do with digital, not digital. It's just that there's a cultural thing about opening it up and reading it, has picked up again an influence on Sundays. But even if you buy the newspaper, it still comes to you from a digital source, because everything comes from a digital source, right? So when you talk about the omniverse versus the metaverse, I think that's a much healthier way of looking at the world. Because I think too many clients right now are focused on, oh my God, I need to go buy real estate on the metaverse because it's already $6,000 a square pixel, as opposed to your point, thinking about what's the journey? Like I don't think it's ever going to be that we're all only in the metaverse. I don't think it's ever going to be that we're only all over here. And to your point, and to your point about the speed, what I was getting at is Amazon announces the single most expensive production in the history of anything, which is the prequel to Lord of the Rings. And we know that that's going to be watched by everybody. All ages are going to watch it. I look at my grandkids, who are, one of them is a TikTok star. The other one's all doing whatever he does all the time. And the truth is, as much as they're on TikTok, as much as they do those things, they love to watch movies. The little ones watch Encanto on Disney because it's great. Doesn't mean they're not going to watch TikTok as soon as that's over.
Right.
But they do have the staying power to watch something great. They also, by the way, read. And as you know, the sales of children's books have gone up in the past 5 years, physical books, and keeps growing, interestingly enough. And there's a new generation now buying Harry Potter books, which is even crazier. And they're reading the thick, big books. And these are the same kids who are sitting on TikTok all day.
No, you're totally correct. I mean, that's the world we're living in, right? I think any brand should understand where are the first touch point. Could be, in some cases, TikTok, could be watching a new streaming content, new like Marvel movie or like the Lord of the Ring. And also could be, I mean, it may not be my starting point in the metaverse, but if you look at recently, that's a research, right, to touch on it. The overall population in the world with disability, like autism and disability, actually almost like 1.6 billion or some crazy number. Talk about bigger than the population of China. So in that scenario, I can see a lot of the without physical constraint, those people, with disability, maybe the starting point would be in the metaverse. But to your point, just like you said, right, buying coffee, buying jeans, like a pair of jeans, going to a restaurant, going to a museum, it's not one or the other. You nailed it right there. I keep telling my client, it's how you create value across those three dimensions, right, exactly. Online, offline, and metaverse, and how digital play a role. And what would be your brand, how you add value as a facilitator or as a host, or how you help your client if you really become a more customer centric. So very interesting time, in the world, like different starting point. And also don't forget, we go in and out. It's not like one and done, right? I start from awareness and then I purchase and then become an advocate and then go through a cycle. It's like I could be going in and out with so many different brands every day. So that's the interesting part about every touch point matters, my opinion.
I love it. So let's follow a little bit just in this direction.
Sure.
One of the things you talked about, I was listening to you talk about voice marketing. And so voice marketing is something that I've always believed in because I was always a big believer in radio back in the day. And I always believed that anything, so we'll talk about how you do creating and destroying it in a bit. But I've always believed that the best way to get ahead is to understand where you're coming from, to understand where it was. So radio was powerful for a variety of reasons. All of a sudden, you come into the world, radio starts to die, podcasts show up. And now I can stream radio and satellite radio. Oh my God, it becomes powerful. And iHeart becomes a force of nature again, which it hadn't been, in other words, Clear Channel, et cetera, where they had come from, had sort of started to go down. People are listening to more radio. People are driving. There's more traffic. All of a sudden, all these things start to become really interesting, and we call it voice marketing. What I liked about what you said is you talked about dimensional marketing. You talked about multidimensional marketing, how there's marketing with 0 dimension, there's marketing with 1, 2, 3, and maybe more dimensions. Talk about that a little bit, because I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, this is what as you mentioned, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of leading top agency in the world. And that was one of the idea when I was at RGA. We talk about, interface is your brand or experience is your brand, even from Sapient time. So if you look at the world we're talking about, used to be a lot of, since internet come along, I call 2-dimension, screen-based. So what you and I looking at a laptop, your desktop, or even iPad and mobile phone is 2-dimensional, it has a screen. And then when you see it's about consumer readiness, voice came along, and also like facial recognition at some point, gesture-based. Remember, there are a lot of new technology for the last 2 decades, and we were not ready because culturally and our customer journey or our behavior not catching up. But when Amazon came out with Alexa, the 0 dimension, all of a sudden we are ready, because we all know in the world we're living in, we're cutting through 0 dimension, 2-dimension screen-based, and even multi-dimensional. Now is, I call the AR, VR, the metaverse, right? You have so many different things going on. So you don't forget, right? Voice, that's why you said radio is not, it's an old technology. If you remember Dragonsoft in Newton, Massachusetts, 20 years ago, they created voice recognition on PC. So voice is nothing new. But all of a sudden, if you look at why Amazon or other voice components being successful, because we are constantly on the go, right? If you're busy running around, I need to pack lunch for the children or walking my dog, all of a sudden my hand is tied up. I cannot use the 2-dimensional interface to interact with brand or getting product and services. Voice become very interesting. All of a sudden you can just talk to it, and then you got into the ecosystem or getting the value you're looking for. Like I also mentioned, if you look at China, like Alibaba, Tencent, they already not only voice, they do facial recognition. I know you remember before COVID, right? If you go into any Alibaba store, like powered by Tmall, or you could go into a lockbox and just smile, and then the lockbox open up and you can get merchandise. So all of a sudden makes a lot of sense for 0 dimension.
And then get arrested when you went out. Which is a separate issue altogether.
Right, and then you got the Amazon Go. Remember, at one point you can walk out Amazon Go, right? It's all of a sudden we are ready for that kind of dimension. You and I know we've been talking about AR, VR, and hologram for so how long? Like 10 years? All of a sudden now makes sense of because if you think about during COVID, right? The first mile of a customer journey is at home. You know how many touch point I have? I have this, watching you and me, like 2-dimensional. I got the voice component. I also have a connected TV I can stream. And don't forget, Barbarian part of Cherry, and we work with Samsung a lot. Last year, Samsung in CES, and also this year. Remember last year, CES, they introduced 5 robots at home. One pouring your wine, one checking the temperature. So think about how many digital enabled touch points just in a household that interacting with you. So that's why I always advise my client to think beyond 2-dimension. You think about 0 to 2-dimension, multi-dimension. If that's the new battlefield or new ecosystem that you have to interact with a household, you know how many touch points? I mean, I could have a robot running around cleaning my floor and pouring me wine. I still can talk to them.
Well, you do. I mean, people have sweeping robots and all kinds of things. I mean, so that, yeah, I totally agree with you. So but again, as we look at it, and that's why I just want to come back to this destroy to create. So we go back to it being older than you by a good stretch. So I remember when I got my first transistor radio, which was huge technology back then with a little earpiece.
All right.
And I was completely untethered because up to that point, you had to be sitting in your room with a console to listen to, forget television, to listen to radio. And now all of a sudden I was 8 years old. I was the only one I knew who had one. And I'm walking around and it was incredible. And the thing that I remember most with my transistor was listening to John Glenn go into space. Oh, and it was, I think I was in 4th grade. I went to school in New York City. Our playground was on the roof, one of these rooftop things. And all my friends were huddled around me in the corner listening on this. And I remember thinking, I was in 4th grade, that this was all new. Like I was listening and to this guy going into space on this little radio that I'm holding that's attached to nothing. And I think everything has been evolution from then.
Yes.
I don't think you have to destroy. I think sometimes it's evolution. Even I think to your parents, right? Like you've taken, and I'm thinking even to my grandparents, right? Because my grandparents also, like your parents, came from elsewhere because they saw greater opportunity. They happened to be running from pogroms, like people were killing them. But they show up here, but they kept their traditions.
Absolutely. I think it's when I use that phrase, it's more like unlearning. I mean, it's unlearning, assuming you don't know enough. Like I don't want that become your knowledge become a barrier. Yeah,
I love it.
Innovating.
Right. Not to be a barrier. Okay, I totally
because to your point, right? Remember we witnessing, in the 70s, ATM was an innovation, right? You don't have to go to a bank, and right, and then you see the cycle of internet came along, but it was a cycle of decades, right? Like every 10 years or every so years until iPhone came along in 2007, and then you see the acceleration, all of a sudden the possibility. And you and I seeing the last 2 years even faster and faster. Like 3 years ago, no one talked about TikTok. now they surpass. Right. Instagram. All of a sudden, the new touch one is 8 seconds, and all the younger generation interacting with them. And then I talked to my team. A lot of them have teenagers at home during lockdown. They all play Fortnite, so they don't even go to TikTok. So I'm talking about younger generation. That's how they make friends in Fortnite. So you can imagine why Microsoft and Activision, the marriage makes a lot of sense. So we have to understand. So the whole point is just unlearning. You cannot move fast enough. So I think that's a philosophy about destroy the old to create the new. But also is you have to keep up or create new culture, understanding the technology innovation,
right. And break the barriers. So let's go back to the ATM for a second, because I love that story. So I worked on the first ATM, right? In New York, the first ATM was at Citibank. And
Oh, wow.
that in and of itself is a whole story, which I'll tell you about another time. But just even how it was a night. Actually, I will tell you now. It was a night of a big snowstorm, and there was one ATM in New York, and somebody had the brilliant idea of, hey, why don't we send a camera crew down and see if anybody comes to the ATM? And it was snowing; you couldn't walk. There were people actually. If you go back to that year, must have been 1973, maybe. People were literally going up Fifth Avenue on skis. That's how much snow there was. And so they sent a crew down. Now, remember, back in those days, it wasn't like you took your iPhone or some little camera. Like you had this huge backpack and this big Sony cam on your shoulder, and the guys went down. And sure enough, two people came to the ATM to get money out. And so they took that film back. They pressed, it was a video. They edited it, and it was on the morning news show the next day as a commercial.
Wow.
And it was a blowaway. Everybody's talking about it. But here's the thing about ATMs. That was just like a sidebar story because I think it's cool.
No, I love that story.
But here's my question to you about the ATMs. It's not just ATMs, by the way. It's also how airlines, for example, how you check in. So I believe that customers really manage. CRM is much more important than customer relationship management. Like if you can make your customers think that they're in charge, you're ahead of the game. And it blows my mind that with all of the adaptation, all the learning, we don't do it enough. So here's my view on an ATM. At the end of the day, I'm taking cost out of the bank by going to the ATM.
Yes.
They should have people there to take care of me, but they don't because they don't have enough people. It costs them too much money. It doesn't work. So they've convinced me that it's to my benefit to go to the ATM. And then they charge me if I go to a different bank. Some banks will charge you $3. Now, what the hell? I just took cost out of your system. You have given me nothing back.
Well, that's why the disruption came along, right? I mean, you're totally correct. I mean, used to be I work with telco companies similar to ATM, that kind of innovation. Telco, every time you call them, cost them $400 or some crazy amount of money. So that's why they create using internet to you do frequent ask questions, you go online, self-service, right? So that model at that point, it was important because to your point, right? Physical constraint, you don't have enough branches, you don't have enough people. How are you going to scale your distribution, which is using technology, create the digital enabled touchpoint ATM that you can scale and take the cost out, and then you got a bigger scale and reach to your audiences. But the problem is when mobile came along, right? After 2 decades or 3 decades, mobile came along. Now this is my ATM, my phone, right? So all of a sudden you see that relationship get disrupted because I don't even go to ATM anymore. Everything I can done by the phone. So that's why you see tremendous shift. All of a sudden, the banks are thinking about how can I reclaim that relationship with my customer. To your point, right? They're not providing more value.
Get it back now.
Right. So all of a sudden, you see all the new startup and mobile banking coming in, and because like for it used to be, talk about before ATM, David, my father and mother, when we were in Hong Kong, you always go to the bank, right? The branch, you have a relationship with the banker, you got a toaster when you open an account. But the relationship is with the people and also with the branch. ATM came along, I became the completely, we configured that relationship. And you become very automatic on basically become a transaction. Your relationship with the bank, right? You either get a bill, paper format, or you go to ATM. So no relationship. When internet mobile technology came along, all of a sudden, wow, I can build a relationship just through this supercomputer on my phone. That's all of a sudden you see the bank. I think we invested into building better relationship with the customer, better CRM, like how you add more value. Can you even I can do loans on my phone right now instead of going to the bank on the form. Of course, you see FDIC, all the other one, all the compliance. But to your point is now you see all of a sudden go full cycle. Now, if the touch point, the convergence between you and the brand and technology, digital technology really disrupted the whole journey, everybody needs to rethink how you build relationship with me or you, right? We talk about the 3-dimension, online, offline, metaverse. So how are you going to build relationship is based on value creation. Why am I going to the ATM right now? I don't even need cash. So I haven't been to the ATM for 2 years, to be honest with you. Going to carry everything here. So how are you going to get me to the bank? And this bank matter. But I believe all three dimensions we touch on: online, physical, offline, or physical aspect, and also the new world order, maybe the omniverse, still play an important role. And I think different industry and different category, different brand need to figure out what touch point in those three dimensions provide better value, or using data to provide more personalized or contextualized. Like to your point, you go to ATM, get cash. Now you're at home using mobile app. You should know I went to the ATM just get cash. I'm not looking for cash. I'm maybe doing something else, right? So that whole contextualization is important, because you don't want to be. You know what I hate when I call my cable company. I cut the cord already, but every time I call them, like, you have to repeat yourself. They transfer you 5,000 times.
I call it the Disney line, is right. So they always make you think that there's nobody, like there's nothing ahead of you, like they do at Disney, and then there's like 10 miles of line when you make the next two curves. It drives me up a wall. So you just mentioned data, and we'll come back to ATM. The truth is, I went to an ATM last night because I went out to a restaurant with some clients, and I wanted to give the maitre d' a little money. So I went to ATM last night for the first time in a long time just to get some cash out. What type of data matters? So as you mentioned earlier, we're going to lose the cookie ability. We're going to lose. Apple, I think, has put a great stake in the ground, in my view, forcing us to be better marketers. Interestingly enough, it's forcing us to rethink marketing and get back to like understanding what marketing really is. But what type of data really matters?
Probably, so many layers or different levels of data are important. I think that's a new holy grail, or the battlefield is the zero party and first party, right? You get second party and third party from your partner and other supply chain or value chain you have. I think the first party data we all know, right? All of a sudden, without cookie, your retail partner won't share data with you. Instagram, YouTube, Amazon, Walmart, they keep their first party data. So what would be a better opportunity now? That's why I mentioned direct to consumer should be, the thinking should be a boardroom conversation for every single brand. I'm not suggesting you go replace your retail partner, but you have to have a direct relationship conversation with your client or customer. In that exchange, you get the first party data for yourself. And then the zero party data, a lot of people talk about, depends on, basically I describe it, all the qualitative data you never plan on catching, but coupling with your first party data give you more information about the market, the product you're selling, and also the customer that you're interacting with. I think that two combined with all your data that you own, associated with your customer, I believe will be a new field of business R&D in a way, right? Not only doing focus group in the past, or go to focus group and launching a new product and get people get involved. That's still important, but these new set of analytics and data can inform you make better decisions for what new product or new services or new relationship you want to build. I think it's very interesting. Now the cycle has broken. You don't have to launch a product, wait for focus group feedback loop, right? Until you know exactly how your product doing today. So I think first, to summarize what I said, I think direct to consumer is a business imperative for every single brand. You have to have a direct relationship and conversation with your customer. In return, you get the customer data, the new customer data you never had, or now you have. How are you going to harness that for better communication? To your point, one-to-one marketing, we talk about it for years. Finally, you kind of know who I am. You should I browse, diapers for my friend. Doesn't mean I want diapers.
Exactly. That's the problem, right? Exactly.
Right. And then how about unlock growth? And then exactly, understand intent, personalize the communication, support me along that value exchange journey. More data to provide. Hey, if you are a brand, you have the brand permission. I think a lot of new household brand will be defined, right? If I'm stuck at home, I'm working through Amazon and Procter & Gamble. Some of Procter & Gamble may be creating a new service, or Samsung create a new product to make my life easier, right? All this new data, right? Can you imagine you already can talk to a speaker or refrigerator to order grocery, maybe you can, you can do more. I think that's a lot of new product and services we have not even think about can be created to add more value, to be able to create better relationship.
Let me ask you a little bit about the industry, just about your business, actually. So one of the things that intrigued me, and I think you kind of hit on a new source of business when you were the CTO at RGA, which is the fact that CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, there's like a whole new area of people inside companies that you can actually get business from in our industry.
Totally. And right, absolutely. First, right, that traditionally marketing budget come from brand and CMO and media, but as technology getting more advanced, more innovation coming through, the cycle getting compressed, right? The pace of innovation going faster and faster. The CIO, CTO, and CDO get access to the budget is different than the marketing. So how you unlock value, in my opinion, how you help your client, like CEO or any C-suite, how you marry those two objective or goal, align those two and create something more remarkable and profitable for your brand, for your target audiences. So a lot of time, I work with a lot of CTO, CIO. Historically, that's a lot of capital cycle, capital investment. You have a lot of technology debts, right? You bought a lot of enterprise software or infrastructure, and then you want to make sure you get the return before you can move on to the next journey, like TikTok or social commerce or live streaming. Those newer touch point, new infrastructure you have to invest. But if you look at the world we just talked about, actually the people and culture driving a lot of movement right now, you have to keep up the pace. So we work with a lot of C-suite from CMO to CTO to talk about that intersection, how you understand the possibility of new technology or emerging technology, mixing with your enterprise investment to create those experiences that you need. It's kind of like a mixologist now. Can I be candid?
Right.
How you mix new and old together, right? Kind of like you're the bartender, but you cannot just drop, everything that you just invested like $100 million of
I love it. So it's the new cocktail. I love it. It's the mixologist.
New cocktail.
Let me ask you. You opened recently your first global office for Barbarian, and it intrigued me that it was in Warsaw, in Poland. I think most people would think, oh my God, he's opening his first office. It'll be in London. It'll be in Hong Kong. It'll be in China. It'll be in Singapore. And yet you opened it in Warsaw, Poland. Why?
Well, a couple reasons. At first, that office, the role it plays is the technology innovation hub. So we're constantly doing more technology built, like for example, website, mobile app, and also a lot of technology talent that we're going to recruit there. So the role itself is not necessarily like a sales office or more client facing. So that's one thing to clarify, the role of that office. Secondly, I've done many agency or many company before. From with India offshoring to Southeast Asia to Latin America. Warsaw, for some reason, fit very well within our corporate infrastructure because we're part of Shell worldwide, and in Europe we actually have almost 2,000 people to support Samsung, majority of Samsung business. So every single country we do have presence. So Warsaw has proven to be in that European region, Western Europe getting more expensive, kind of like US, right? The labor costs getting higher and higher. They're not sustainable to create anything more efficient or effective for a client budget, right? When changing a lot. And Warsaw, and first of all, a couple of things that attract me the most is they have a great university. They got a lot of great technology and digital talent. They speak multiple languages. They speak like English and Polish and all the other languages they have. And also they have a newfound, at least personally speaking, they have a newfound culture. They want to do everything, willing to learn. Kind of like 20 years ago when we first started doing outsourcing in India. Not saying not now, but I just find that like experience very similar to 20 years. And when we set up the Warsaw office, we have multiple shifts, like 3 to 5 shifts, and do truly 24/7. And a lot of newly grad college students, they love to take the night shift or the day shift, whatever fit, to help them to grow their career. I think that's an important aspect as an agency or consultancy or whatever company building. You have to create a platform to create more talent. So somehow that combination, only 7 hours away, English speaking, access to technology talent, geographically makes sense, and the cost efficiency also support the business model. That's why I pick a location. And I can imagine I can find another location, Latin American, serve the same purpose. It's just a matter of time.
But it's interesting you did that. Yeah, no, because about 10 years ago or so, we also bought an agency there when I was still with WPP, when I was with Wonderman and then Y&R. For the same reasons that you just mentioned. It was language, it was culture, it was their technology, it was their ability to learn, to fit in. It was great, and they've proved to be very good. Tell me about, let's just switch gears yet again and come to the executive jury. So you're on the executive jury of New York festivals. What are you going to be looking for? So talk to everybody. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I just listened to Steven Moy talk. I'm really inspired. And now you're going to be looking at my work. Oh my God, what are you going to be looking for?
Well, I always looking at the intersection between creativity and technology. I think this is the best time to do something new and exciting. And more importantly, looking for how you help your client making something more remarkable and also help them unlock growth, right? It's not just a one-off campaign and there's no, there's no long tail effect or there's some value to look into it. So I would say typically I look at three things about innovative marketing or creative work. First, gotta be a value adding to your target audience. Whoever you're targeting to, you gotta add some value or create some value for them because no one's gonna use it, right? Why are you interacting with them? And second, also important will be, is it differentiated for your client or the brand, right? I mean, you and I both know everybody can have a Alexa skill, but does it make sense to have an Alexa skill, right? Just building Alexa skill on the voice component. So it gotta be differentiated for your client or for the brand you're working with, right? It gotta be like that. Differentiation is very key because in the sea of sameness and also attention economy, how are you gonna differentiate yourself within seconds, right? And then last but not least, I've seen a lot of either campaign or new idea, innovative work. If you are not unlocking growth, could be market share, could be revenue, could be more culturally relevant for the brand, that whole initiative will die because a lot of executive team at your client company and brand, they constantly need to evaluate and prioritize decision, what initiative help them to progress the company. So you got to show all three. I look at it, right? Value to your target audience, different value to your the brand you're working in, and also unlocking growth. If not, that's my lenses to look at work. If not, gonna be like just become not that groundbreaking or more immersive or memorable experiences for a lot of brands.
All right, so I hope you all took notes. I hope you all took notes to listen to what you need to do to be in the running with Steven. So Steven, one last question, and just an opportunity just to share your thinking. COVID hit us all hard. COVID hit the world hard. I loved what you said. We will win and we will fall plenty, but it's how we pick ourselves back up. We will win and we will fall plenty, but it's how we pick ourselves back up. I think that is such a lesson for the world.
No, totally. I mean, that's what I call experimental innovation. Remember, a lot of learning we can learn from the technology company. When they all talk about like fail first, right? You look at any startup, successful startup or the big tech company. So I because I was a software engineer when I can say the first 10 years of my career. So I'm applying a lot of the software development technique into marketing, agile, innovation sprint, right? Fail first. And I call fast transformation for my client. I don't believe any new idea or commercializing or launching a new idea, new product, new service, it's going to take months. And in the world we live in, it should be weeks because we're moving so fast, right? So I think there's a lot of room for fast transformation. And also that would drive a lot of what I call the experimental innovation. People need to be courageous. Go back to my parent, courageous. Go back to what I call destroy the old and create a new, unlearn yourself, and all new thing possibility that you never imagined. Like live streaming social commerce wasn't possible 2 years ago, now everywhere. To like trying, failing is okay. That's all you need to, but you have to do a calculated move, right? You're using your data, find your ecosystem partner that working with you, test, and then experiment. And I think I see more and more my client getting the rhythm today. I hope that makes sense to you, David.
Oh, it does. So, Steven, I can't thank you enough. I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure that all of our listeners have too. And first of all, I just want to thank you for being an FOD, a friend of David, and I look forward to spending more time with you. I want to remind everybody, experimental innovation, speed is the new black. Think about how you can get business, not just from the CMOs, not just from your traditional ways, but think about mixology. Think about who else in the company is sitting on budgets that actually are relevant to you, like CIOs and CTOs, and how important that is. Remember that engineering is a creative force. Think about everything you can learn from engineering. And I'll come back to the innovative experimental innovation, but just this notion of experimenting doesn't mean you have to jump in. Don't take all your money and put it in the metaverse today. But if you're not experimenting, you've lost. You're out, because something, by the time you get in, they'll be in the next thing.
Exactly.
And you'll be sitting back there wondering, like, how come I'm sitting here in an empty metaverse? And that is not where any of us, that's not where any of us want to be. So, Steven Moy, thank you so much. It was such a wonderful honor to speak with you. And we look forward to hearing great things from your jury.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your time.
And one last word, courage. Courage. Don't forget
yes.
courage. Think about Steven's parents. Think about courage. Think how important that is. So, to all of you out there, thank you for being a part of Creativity from the Other Side, brought to you by New York Festivals. Today, it's featuring Steven Moy, the global CEO of Barbarian. I guess that makes you the ultimate barbarian. But
Thanks,
Steven. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.